What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Think On It podcast, season 2, episode 2.
Yeah.
In 2022. And today we're flipping the script a little bit.
Uh-oh.
Because I'm hosting and I'm interviewing Matt.
Hey, how about that? This is going to be a little different.
Yeah, it will, but it'll be good. So we're in a series called Where Are You Going?
Yeah.
And it's really about the different phases of spiritual growth. So we talked last week about explore. Greg just talked about build on this past Sunday. After that, we're going to own and then thrive. And kind of intermingled with all of that is this phase called the wilderness which we'll get to as well. But this build stage that Greg talked about is really where faith is all about learning about God. It's where you're developing your belief system. It's where you're really hungry for information. You're wanting to, get your questions about the Bible answered.
Yeah.
You're wanting to take all that in. This is the phase where you're probably like watching a lot of sermons online and finding those pastors and speakers who you really like. It's really a phase where you're looking for belonging, where you're looking for some security in your faith, because for a lot of people it's pretty new. And then answers are often found in a specific belief system. So maybe that's a denomination or with a specific leader. So I believe what Greg believes, it's found in a person or in a specific set of beliefs.
Yeah.
Probably in the church that you're being, where you're building your faith in. And like on any road trip or any journey, you can get stuck along the way. We talked about that with Explore. You can get stuck in exploring faith. You can also get stuck in building faith. And we're going to talk about how a lot of people don't see it as getting stuck a little bit later. But if you're stuck in this phase, it could really lead to a lot of just toxic things.
Sure.
One thing that comes up to mind if you're like really stuck in building your faith and just accruing all this knowledge is you could get drawn into like some black and white thinking where it's like this way or that way. Mm-hmm. There's no middle ground. There's no gray. It's just hard and fast rules.
Yeah. Right. Unfortunately, real life just doesn't seem to work that way.
Yeah.
It's true.
And, the more Bible college and seminary I went to, the more I was like, I'm like pretty gray on, this issue in scripture. And I just got to see there's a lot of room for interpretation.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Getting stuck in this phase could also lead to a sense of self-righteousness, a sense of pride about all that you know or all the knowledge that you've taken in.
Yeah, that's true.
It could lead you to really just being like pretty bitter and angry. And like, I do Bible study like 7 times a day, 8 times a week.
Right.
So like,
I'm doing it the right way. You're not doing it the right way. You start to maybe kind of hold yourself above other people or your knowledge level above other people. And it can lead to some pretty negative things. Yeah.
And a lot of this is coming from a talk that we heard at North Point, and one of the things that really stood out to me when he was talking about how you could get stuck in these phases and it could be toxic, he said that people who get stuck in build are often too focused on politics.
That's an interesting correlation, but I see it. Once they said that, I'm like, I do see that. It happens.
And it kind of goes along with the self-righteousness, the black and white thinking. Right. If like you're right in all these areas of your life, and
I've got it all figured out. If you guys would just follow me, we'd be good. Yeah, it's a dangerous place to be.
But we don't want you guys to be stuck. We really want to offer some advice on, how to be in this build stage, how to do it well, how to build a faith. That'll help you own your faith well, that when you get to those wilderness and tough times, how can you build a faith that is going to last, that could push through to the other side of the wilderness and really start thriving. That's really what we want for people. And Matt, I'm interviewing you today because you're the group's pastor. This is really your bread and butter, is helping people build and build up their faith in Jesus.
Yeah.
So what advice do you have for people who are building their faith, or maybe they went through a wilderness and kind of deconstructed some things and now they're rebuilding their faith?
Yeah.
So what advice would you offer them so that they can make it through the next wilderness and really thrive? How do we build well?
Yeah, so it's an interesting thing you say about rebuilding, because I do think that a lot of times if people go through a wilderness stage or a wilderness experience, they will probably very quickly find themselves back in this stage somewhere. Maybe trying to relearn some things, trying to remind themselves some things that they knew, and maybe seeing some things that they were always taught, as a kid or whatever, seeing them a little bit differently, and really trying to search out, like, is that just something that I was told by my parents or in a Christian environment, or is that something that the Bible actually says, that God actually says that I need to make sure that I know? And kind of going back and refinding all of those things. So it is, and this is a very important and critical stage. The best advice that I think that I would give, and people who know me very well probably could say, oh yeah, I'm not surprised that he said that, and I hope that you'll still take it to heart, is to do this stage in the context of community. You got to find, whether it be a small group of people or at least one other person that you can walk through this stage with, because it's important that we all find ways to be able to feed ourselves. What you get from 30 minutes on a Sunday morning, or even from watching a pastor online or something like that, is never going to be enough. So we've got to be able to feed ourselves, be able to go to the Bible and things like that, and know how to be able to study it and get things out of it. But we also we also need to make sure that we have other people with us. When we go through this in the context of community, it will keep us grounded. It will keep you from getting that maybe that high and mighty kind of like, well, I know a lot of stuff. I've filled my head with a ton of knowledge, and that, because I think we meaning Christians, the church, whatever, however you want to say that, have wrongly pointed to this stage as being equal to spiritual maturity. The acquisition of knowledge, we have kind of set that up as a barometer for a spiritually mature individual. And it just simply isn't. It just isn't. And unfortunately, like, it's no surprise that a person will get stuck in this stage if we essentially indirectly tell people, this is what you need to do. You just need to learn a ton and you'll be fine. And that's how I know whether you're spiritually mature or not, is if you know enough stuff. And we just have incorrectly set it up that way. And it just isn't. It's not, because there's a lot of people who know a lot of stuff who are not spiritually mature. And there's a lot of people who know far less who are spiritually mature. It's not a defining characteristic of a person who is spiritually mature.
Yeah, I'm reminded of Bart Ehrman, who's like this biblical scholar. He probably knows more about the Bible than all of the pastors at Faircreek. Could probably, does all the Greek and Hebrew stuff. He went to the same Bible college as me. Yeah. He's got all this knowledge, but he has no relationship with Jesus.
Yeah, that's wild to me. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I think that pitfall to avoid, like, really your advice was about avoiding doing it all by yourself. Like, it's all about not being a Lone Ranger Christian, but really bringing other people alongside of you to help you build in that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, having other people with you, because you will learn just as much from the experiences of the people around you as you will maybe from Scripture itself. And I'm not putting the thoughts and opinions of people on par with the Bible and what God says. But what I'm saying is, as you surround yourself with people who are living out what God teaches us to do, you will learn a ton from the experiences in which their knowledge and their understanding of God and the Bible actually played out in their lives. You will learn so much from hearing their experiences of, I knew this to be true, but then real life hit and it was really hard and I went through a difficult, painful situation, but my relationship with the Lord, my connections with other people helped bring me through that and out of that. And here's how what I know to be true about God actually played out in my life. You will learn so much from those experiences, and those types of things will keep you grounded because you'll be like, I've been there too. I've experienced that too. Or I faced something similar to what you did and it kind of crushed me. I'm still having trouble getting out of it. How were you able to come out okay on the other end of that? You'll learn so much from those experiences.
Yeah, and they really help us build. And that really is a perfect segue into the next question. And around here we talk about faith catalysts. We talk about the 5 faith catalysts, which are 5 things that grow our faith. But what are some of those things that specifically? What are those faith catalysts in the build phase that are just the bread and butter of this phase? And then what does each of those catalysts look like within this stage of really just building?
Yeah. So Greg mentioned 3 of the catalysts specifically, and he really was 100% right on with those. And we've kind of already talked about 2 of them, if you think about it here so far already today. So the one, providential relationships. You've got to be in connection and community with other people. Those relationships with other people will teach you a lot, but they will also help keep you grounded from just getting too kind of full of yourself a little bit.
Yeah, or just lost in your thoughts or confused.
Yeah, right. You get so isolated and all by yourself that it just... It's never a good place to be.
Yeah.
And one other thing, especially since now in the world we live in now, you're listening to so much online probably. People in this stage will also have a tendency to really latch on to a particular teacher or leader. And we want to be careful not to get more focused on the person who's teaching than what it is they're teaching about. Sure. And so, having connections with other people will help keep you from doing that so much, I think.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of... when Paul's talking to the church in Corinth, right? Where he's like, where people are dividing into factions, like, oh, I'm of Apollos, I'm of Paul.
Right.
And, that's something we should avoid. We should really be focused on, like you said, what's been taught instead of who the teacher
Right.
is.
And Paul's basically like, no, hold on. I'm following Jesus. How about we just do that? Yeah. That's pretty much what he's, boiling it down a little too much, but oversimplified. But that's pretty much what he said.
So providential
relationships. And then another one that he mentioned is the practical teaching. We've kind of already talked about that too. It's important to do Bible study, get into a community, a small group that will do a Bible study together, attend church on Sunday, listen to preachers online, whatever it is that you're doing. You're getting practical teaching from God's word. That way, it's important to continue to do that, and that really plays heavily into this build stage. Yeah. But then Greg also mentions the personal disciplines thing too, and that's one of the catalysts that also plays very heavily in this stage, I think, because it will take discipline to take what you're learning and start to act on it, and also to keep yourself focused and grounded, like I've said, because it takes discipline. If you know, hey, I just need to start my day off every morning with prayer, spending time with God, then you discipline yourself. It'll take discipline to do that, to remind yourself every day, that's an important part for me and I need to do it. If you know, I just need to start my day off every day reading a little bit of the Bible, because it teaches me, but also it just puts me in the right frame of mind, then it'll take discipline to establish that habit and to really do that. Maybe just getting out of the house and going to be around some other people, that's going to take discipline if that's not something you're normally used to doing. So just those private disciplines, and all of those disciplines are really, there are some that of course are unique or that are common to everyone, but those are really going to be nuanced and unique to you based on what it is that you need. And if you feel yourself getting a little too prideful about all the information you've accrued and how much you know, then there's going to be some discipline there to say, I got to put myself around some other people that keep me in check so that I don't do that.
Yeah. That's huge. So what would you, I mean, we talked about getting stuck in this phase. We talked about your advice and really like some of those key things that build into it. What would you tell someone they're watching, a friend sent this to them or they stumbled upon it on YouTube. They're in the build phase. They're hungry. They're taking in knowledge. They've just been here a really long time. They're stuck in that metaphorical traffic jam.
Yeah.
What would you tell someone who's stuck in this phase? How, what's a next step they could take that would really just drive their faith toward taking more ownership, which is the next phase that we'll be talking about.
Yeah. So here, my encouragement to somebody who's in that position is that it's time to start to own your journey, the journey that you are on with God. And so what I mean by that is, one, it's time to start acting on the stuff that you're learning. So you need to get in touch with the gifts that God has given you, figure out what those things are, and start to actually exercise them, start to actually do some stuff with them. Things that people who are in this stage will commonly find themselves saying things like, well, Christians do this and Jesus followers do that. And what you want is, in order to start owning that, you want to start moving to a place where you're saying, I do this or I do that, as opposed to most people who are Jesus followers do that, or that's typical of Jesus. Like,
take it personally.
It's taking it personally. Because I am making a conscious choice and a conscious decision to actually follow and do the things that I'm learning about.
Yeah, that's so good. And I think we can fall into this trap. And really my encouragement for someone who feels stuck is when you are taking in knowledge, when you're learning, when you're studying the Bible, when you're watching a sermon, when you're doing these things, ask yourself the question, okay, this knowledge is great. How can I apply this?
Yeah.
What does love require of me?
That's such
like if I were to take this, thing that Paul says in Colossians, and it were to start outpouring in my life, what would be the thing that I would do as a result of this thing that I've learned?
Right.
How would it affect the way I work? How would it affect the way I interact with my family? How would it affect what I do on a daily basis?
Yeah. Yeah, so the build stage is all about, it's mostly you're receiving, right? You are receiving information, you're receiving teaching from other people, you're receiving experiences from other people that have been through things that are sort of like what you've been through. And it's an important, critical, crucial stage in a person's development.
Absolutely.
But we want to get to a point where we're moving from being just a receiver to being more of a giver.
Yeah. And we don't want you to hear us say build is bad.
No, it's totally not.
So
it is a critical part.
Yeah.
It's so important. It really is. And you really never stop learning, right? So the idea, too, is that we want to move on from this stage to the next, which means I'm just done learning. That's not true. That's definitely not true. You never stop learning. It's about, okay, we want to move to a place where we're using it, where we're exercising the gifts that we've been given and the information that we're learning. We're putting it into practice. We're applying it, like you said. It doesn't mean that you quit learning.
Yeah.
You're always going to be building from in one aspect or another and be constantly learning. That's a good thing. You want to always be doing that.
I've said it a lot of times. I've said it on the podcast before, but you never graduate from the gospel.
Yeah, I love that. It's so good. You said that once before, and I really, really like that.
And I think that's such a good reminder. Like, we can read the whole thing. We could read all 66 books, every word.
Yeah.
We can underline it. We could do all that. But once we start taking ownership and we start looking back at those things, we realize, oh, I read it this way when I was first building. But now that I'm thriving, or now that I've, been through some wilderness, or now that I've taken some ownership, this is saying something completely new to me. Yeah.
Or it looks different. It takes on new meaning to you once you've actually, like you said, once you put it into action. Man, a lot of the things that you read and know and understand about the Bible will take on a whole new light when you start doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank y'all for joining us.
Yeah,
we
thank
are
you.
really happy y'all tuned in. We would love to know where you're at in your spiritual journey. So email us, drop a comment, and let us know. Are you exploring, building, owning, thriving? Are you in a wilderness? We'd love to know and just get to know y'all a little bit better.
Definitely.
And speaking of owning, we are moving toward owning this Sunday,
Yes.
9:30,
Yeah.
11,
Join us.
in the building or online, faircreek.online.church.
Yeah.
And we'd love to see y'all there. And finally, share this with a friend. Share this with someone. Oh, I think they're really in this build stage.
Right.
Maybe someone's been building for a really, really long time and they're stuck. Share this with them. We'd love for this to have as much impact as possible.
Right.
Share with a friend, coworker. Drop a like. It really helps us just reach more people.
For sure. And subscribe to the Faircreek YouTube channel so that you can get these videos when they come out, podcast updates when they come out, and then other things that we post on there as well, too. So you'll get notified when that stuff happens.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, we'll see y'all next
awesome.
time.
Thank you so much. We will see you next time.